Hello, 7th graders. Your new video is from section 5.5, which is on simple interest. And one thing you need to remember about interest is that it can be both good and bad. Interest can be good because if you put money into a savings account or even in a CD or a bond or something like that, you can make interest on your money. That means that the longer you have your money in a savings account, the more interest you make. So you're making money on the money that you have in the bank. Okay, same thing with a CD or a bond. They make a certain percentage rate of interest. Then also it can be a bad thing because, or a negative thing, not really bad, but it costs you money. When you don't have enough money, like to buy a car or a house, something like that, and you have to take a loan out from the bank, they don't just give you the money for free. They don't borrow you $5,000 and then let you pay $5,000 back. They charge you interest, which is what we're going to figure out right now, this simple interest. It's the interest earned only on the principal. So when you pay your loan back that you take from the bank, you owe them what you borrowed plus the interest. So the longer you have a loan out, the longer or the more interest you're going to have to pay back. So we have a formula down here that we're going to use. I equals PRT. And the P stands for principal. The I is the interest. The P is principal, the original amount of money borrowed or deposited. So if I borrowed $5,000, then the P is my $5,000. If I deposited $1,000 into my savings account, my P is 1,000. The rate is the percentage rate that you're dealing with. So 5% or whatever it is they give you. The T is the time, and that's the amount of money that the amount of time that the principal is borrowed for. So after, say, 4 years or 5 years, you have to pay it back. That's the time. And normally you put it in years. So if they would happen to give it to you in months, there's a special way you have to handle that. But I believe most of the ones we're going to do are just in years. So here's my first example. We're going to use this formula. So it says find the simple interest earned on $2,000 at 10% for 6 years. So that means I'm borrowing $2,000. I'm being charged 10% interest, which is really high. That's terrible, but it could happen. And I have to pay it back in 6 years. So if I plug it into my formula, so I equals PRT. Anytime you use a formula, you should write the formula down first. And then you're going to substitute your numbers in where they go. So P is 2,000. Since they're all right next to each other, it's multiply. To remember to work with a percent, you got to go 2 to the left. So I'm just going to change it right away. And then my 6 years I can just put there. So now the formula tells you exactly what to do. It says multiply, multiply. Nothing is over here. It's my I that I'm trying to find. So 2,000 times, and it doesn't matter really which order you do it in. I usually do one that I could do in my head first. 2,000 times 6, so 12,000 times 0.10. So then 12,000, and really it's just 0.1, right? Which I could do in my head, but that's okay. So there we go. So $1,200 interest. Okay. Now they might also ask you not only what is the interest, but they might ask you how much do you have to repay. Okay. If they ask you how much you have to repay at the end, you would pay the $2,000 that you owed them plus the $1,200 interest. So you would actually be paying them back $3,200. That is a really expensive loan, but it could happen, I suppose. Okay, so here's your interest, and then you add it to your principal to figure out how much total you owe. So then here's another one. Graph the total simple interest earned after years 1 to 4 of a $200 loan with 3% interest. Well, to be able to graph something, I'm going to need some numbers to work with. So let's do, I'll write it out in detail. So I'm going to have time, so I'm going to have 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and I'm just going to make a little table here. Okay, and then this one will be the interest. And so to find the interest for year one, you're just going to plug it into your little formula. 200 times my percent is 3%, so it'd be 0.03 times 1. And then you take 200 times 0.03 times 2. And then 200 times 0.03 times 3. And then the same thing again, but for 4 years. And then I'm just going to make another column here where I get the answer. So if I go ahead and multiply all of these, you're going to get $6 for your interest. And then you're going to get $12, and then you're going to get 18, and then you're going to get 24. You see what they're really doing? They're just adding $6 interest each year. But it says graph it. So now I have to put it on a little graph. So I'm going to call it interest owed or something like that. And I'm going to put my interest down here, my time here. There's probably many different ways you can make this graph. This is just how I chose to do it. So 6, 8, 12. I'm just going to go by 6's on the bottom since that's what it ended up being. So year 1 is 6, year 2 is 8. Oops. I got off here. So that should be a 12. That should be a 18. So 2, 12, 3, 18, and 4, 24. And it should make a straight line. Right? So we can graph them too, but I really just did the exact same thing, right? Here, here, here. I did it 4 times. Just using the same formula that I just used. So bring that information with you, and we will talk about it more the next time I see you. Have a good night.